All right, here we are. For a while now, this video has been on my mind, and I didn't really know how to piece it together, if I'm being honest. But I know I just had to. I know I just had to make this video. I must. I'm not really good at this, if you can tell. It's my first time. But if you're watching this, it's for a reason. And I hope that you take away something from this. I joined the military in 2017. And the first 4 years of my enlistment were great. I had a wonderful time. The military, the Marine Corps is probably the best thing I ever done, if I'm being honest. Going in as a young man at 18 years old, enlisting, best decision I have ever made. And it was something that I really didn't want to do. Growing up, it just kind of fumbled in my hands. But God has a mysterious way of working. The first 4 was great. Then I re-enlisted. And let me add, I guess, a very important part of the story. Towards the end of my enlistment, my first enlistment, I got married. I fell in love with a girl who was placed in my platoon, and we kicked it off, and it was one of the most toxic relationships ever. 19 years old, falling in love, young, naive. I didn't know what love was. I just know I didn't want to be alone. And here we are, just hanging out every day, had a baby together. And I thought we were living a fairy tale life, something out of Disneyland, you know? Young, married, baby, but no. It was a nightmare. Our love turned sour. We were bitter towards each other. Arguments, hostile, domestic violence on her end. My ex-wife ended up getting arrested for domestic violence against me. And keep in mind, all this was going on with a newborn baby. It was rough. So when I was 22, I had to make a decision to leave. I stepped away from the relationship. I seen it as I stepped away from my first family. At 22, making that decision, it was very tough on me. Very, very tough. Looking at your baby girl's eyes and saying that final goodbye to her, knowing that you're not going to see her for some months. It's tough, man. I really hope that not many fathers have to go through that, but it's tough. But I'll move on with the story. My second enlistment. This is where things got real. So as I said, my first enlistment was great. My second enlistment was the exact opposite. In the beginning of my second enlistment, I was going through my divorce and a custody battle. And while trying to be the best Marine you can while going through family problems at home, me, myself, I was not able to juggle those problems. I was waking up late, stressed, insomnia. Some days I didn't even feel like being at work. Some days I didn't feel like being alive. I didn't tell no one that. It's how I felt on the inside. It was just tough. Knowing everything that's going on, I didn't know how to deal with it. Ultimately, because of my actions, because of me being late, lack of accountability, I got demoted in rank. I went from E4 corporal to lance corporal for being late. And I think when it happened, I didn't agree with it. I thought it was bullshit. I was like, you guys don't understand me. You don't know my problem. You don't see a man that's hurt. You don't get it. You guys are effed up. But it wasn't until years later, until I turned 26. I got NJP'd when I was 22. It wasn't until I was 26 I realized that NJP was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Me losing rank could have been the best and most eye-opening thing that ever happened to me. Because when it happened, initially, I lost heart and hope. I almost kind of gave up on myself quietly. I didn't have as much love towards the Marine Corps, not as much love towards the job. I seen it as if they turned a blind eye on me, when actually I turned a blind eye on myself. So towards the end of my enlistment, I just phased on out. I eventually did pick up sergeant before I got out, but it didn't feel earned. I actually picked up sergeant on the very last month I was in. Crazy.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine, sir. Good morning. God bless. So, I'd missed my downfall with NJP. I began on a spiral. I began involving in alcoholism heavily, even more. So, once again, the beginning of my second enlistment is when everything went downhill. I lost my first family, and I ended up moving in with some friends. And that's when I realized your environment truly makes who you are. Because when I was from 23 to 25 years old, I was living with some of my Marine buddies. And everything and only thing we would do on our weekends, we would just party as a house and drink and do nothing with our lives, nothing productive. We'll just drink. There was a photo that was taken at the end of the year 2022 of all the alcohol and liquor bottles that we consumed in the house. And it was about 98 bottles. And I know for a fact that 20% of the bottles that weren't in the photo were thrown away. And it made me reflect. Because when they sent that photo, they were hyping it up as if it was a good thing, as if it was a great thing that we drank almost 98 bottles of alcohol that year. What kind of a friend group is that? What kind of, listen to me. If your friends are on that bullshit to where they're just glorifying drinking, drugs, chasing women, get away from that friend group. You're going to drive your life down into the ground. Get away from them. For 2 years, heavy drinking, involving in nicotine. Doing all this to mask the pain I was feeling, thinking that getting drunk every weekend I was making progress in my life, but no, I was actually just hurting myself, the inner me that wanted to be better and bigger. And everyone watching this video have an inner you. You have someone inside of you that wants to be better and bigger than who you are now. Everyone does, but usually our external environment blocks that. And it was blocking me for so many years. It wasn't until I got out the military was when I really truly started to think. I wasn't thinking at all from the ages adolescence to the age of 25. I was not thinking. I wasn't worried about my future. I wasn't worried about political things. I wasn't worried about I don't know what I was worried about. I didn't have a goal. I had poor finances. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I want to be. I just know I was a Marine. And I was pretty good at fitness. Good at running and good at lifting. I still am. But that was it. That was it. I had no major aspiration in life. When I got out of the military of August 2024, I really pushed my back against the wall. It showed me how it feels to be alone. Very alone. I know not many people can cope with loneliness. It's hard. It's difficult to be lonely. It was difficult for me. But strangely enough, in my loneliness, I can't explain it. I was able to break my alcohol addiction, my nicotine addiction. I began focusing on myself more. I cut off all of my friends and acquaintances. Everyone that I knew in the military, everyone that I knew in the life before, I stopped talking to them. I cut them off. Why? Because they weren't on shit. If I'm being quite frank. The things they were doing in their life did not line up with the things I wanted to do in my life. They were drinking, doing drugs, not trying to be better, not studying, being lost in the sauce. Why would I want to hang out with somebody like that? You are who you're around. You are what your environment is. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but you are who you be around. That's what I'm trying to say. And I did not realize that for so long. It's crazy because I would say that when I was 22. I would say, if you live in a house with 5 millionaires, you're bound to be the 6 millionaires. I told them that. And they even remembered that because one of the roommates told me that at a future time. They said, Marcus, you said, if you live in a house with 5 millionaires, you're bound to be the 6th one. And if you live in a house with 5 bums, you're bound to be the 6th bum. In that case, I was in a house with bums. I was becoming a bum myself. I was a bum myself. I was just drinking, doing nothing in my life, chasing women. I got tattoos that I regret. Imagine, this is how you know you're in a house filled with idiots. I hate to say it, including myself. I got a tattoo that is spelled wrong on my body. And it wasn't until I posted the tattoo, my buddy Nico from Harvard replied to the photo and corrected the misspelled tattoo. And I was like, oh well. But it was 7 people in that house when I got that tattoo. And you're telling me no one, including myself, knew that we spelled this wrong? That's a key sign that you're in the wrong environment. What I'm trying to say is, if you find yourself in a situation where you want to grow, maybe the best thing I can recommend to you is go in isolation and be alone. It is okay. Because one thing is for sure, if you're in isolation long enough with yourself, you will eventually find yourself. Study, read, learn, ask questions, begin to ask why. It is okay to ask why. Whenever you think a thought, ask, why did I think that thought? It is not by some random coincidence that a thought just comes into your mind. It comes from somewhere, and it's a reason why you're thinking it. Now, think positive always. That is the biggest thing I have taken away from this age. When I turned 26, it was like a freaking light bulb in my head. Like a switch just turned on. Actually, what it was Bob Proctor. A video of Bob Proctor just popped up on my phone one day in his elderly age. And he said something so profound that it moved me. It moved my whole body. Before he said this, I was not in the thinking state. I didn't care about anything, no goals. But when he said this, he said, everything has energy. Nothing is at rest. Even a dead body has energy. He said the bones turns to dust. Therefore, it requires energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred or transmuted. Remember that. Live by that. You have the ability inside of you to create and do anything you want to do on this earth. It is God's given ability given into you, his special child, you, to do whatever you want. You are here for a reason. It is not by a random coincidence that you're here on this freaking earth. Not no way in hell. No. You're here for a reason. If you're watching this video, you're going to make it. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. You're special. You're here. You're on earth. You're alive. You have the ultimate gift of giving. Be grateful for every day. Study, learn, and read. Now, this is my first time doing this. Hopefully I get better. But just know you always have a friend, Marcus. And I look forward to making more of these. God bless you all. Till next time.